Your neighbor tells you about the unstable man in the cul-de-sac who claims to have been abducted by aliens. And then there's the woman in town who claims to see Bigfoot all the time. Your boss, who you greatly admire, confides in you that he has started speaking with his wife daily when he gets home from work. She died 8 years ago. It's hard to believe this stuff, and you write these stories off as overactive imaginations. Are these people seeking attention, or are they a bit unstable? No matter what you think, if you're like me, you walk away wondering, what if that was true? The What If It's True podcast features stories by ordinary people like you and me. Something has happened to them, something so strange they are in agony unless they tell others. My name is Cameron Buckner, and the What If It's True podcast is available at whatifitstruepodcast.com and on all available podcast apps.
Hey, Mark Neville.
Hey.
Goat herder. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. You're froze up.
Oh, gosh.
There you are.
Something happened.
Yeah, I didn't know if I'd have problems or not. I had a Zoom call today, and so when we were with that OBS, I had done a Zoom call during the day, and we just about didn't go on air that night.
Well, I got an email today from the internet company and said starting Thursday, they're going to be doing some fiber splicing and stuff in the area, and I may be without Thursday or be interrupted right in the middle of whatever you're saying.
Just remember the scriptures say liars won't enter into the gates of heaven. Don't you be calling me at 7:59 saying, I can't get on.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of technology and fiber and internet, we're going to talk tonight about, what are we talking about tonight? How can technology overtake the Sasquatch? You hear this debate all the time, people talking about why haven't we got better pictures on trail cameras? Why haven't we got more video? Why haven't we got more pictures? Blah, blah. Because they think technology is the key to remedying this riddle of the Sasquatch. What do you think about the riddle?
Well, I think a lot has to do with what your goal is. And my goal is similar to your goal, that we just want to see them and interact with them. And so we're not trying to prove it to the world or anybody else. We just want to put ourselves in a position to have interaction with them.
Right.
And so, but I think there is a lot of good innovations out there. I think there's a lot of good tactics. I think people are constantly trying to tweak their strategies, and every now and then you just get lucky with something. Right. And, I think about different times that I have, just to think about when we had Cam Buckner with us, and I should have brought that what my case goes into. It's just a case that's made out of balsa wood, and I hot glued bark on the outside of it. And the recorder don't really stick out, but about an inch, just the microphone of it.
Right.
And I hid that thing in some mountain laurel. Me and Cam went up there, and I said, man, this is a good spot. It was right on a ledge, and put it deep in that mountain laurel. And the next day we had been out doing some tracking and scouting, and me and Cam turned around and came back before y'all. And we were sitting up there at camp, and I said, well, let's go up there and check that recorder. And about the time we climbed the ledge up there that was up above our camp, that's when y'all walked up. You and Matthias Tipton and Kane Michael. And I looked over and saw an X on the ground. And the direction that y'all were walking, y'all found another X. And I mean, it was just like the X's were on both sides of that recorder.
Right.
And so, it just kind of tells me that anything man-made electronic, that they're wise to it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what senses they have that lets them know that there's something there that's not natural, and it may be multiple senses they have, but those X's wasn't there whenever we had put out that recorder.
I agree. It happened overnight pretty much.
Yeah.
So, hey, we got Jamie Ginter, Hoosier Squatch, waiting in the background here. Let's bring him up to get in on this. Jamie, how you doing?
Doing good. How about you two?
I call him Jamie Ginter, but it's I mess his name up all the time. He probably prefers me messing his name up.
I don't even care. So many people say it, it doesn't matter. Close enough.
That's good. Well, let's start off tonight. People constantly are saying, why do we not have any better trail camera pictures of Sasquatch? There are millions of them out in the woods, and we don't hardly have any good ones, which is a false statement. There are good ones out there. The people just don't show them because they don't want to get raked over the coals by this Bigfoot community. But why do you think we don't get more than what we've got?
Who's going first?
Start, Jamie. Go ahead.
I don't know. It's just like Mark just got through saying, what would be wonderful is we could figure out how they detect the game cameras. If it's the light, are they detecting that, or are they just watching, or is it both? There's no doubt there's a watching factor or a vision factor there. But you throw both in the mix, and it really complicates it for us, for sure. But I don't know what it is that they would see. But at the same time, it's not like we know enough about them that we may likely never figure it out, what it is that they see. Naturally, in our mind, if we can't see something like that, we think, well, how do they see it?
Yeah.
That's kind of, that goes along with many things. Or how can something run that fast? Every animal we see can't run that fast. People see them. It's just a blur. They're so fast.
Right.
Just like 0 to 60 and nothing, and how do they do that? We don't know any humans that can do something like that. We think in our mind, well, how would a Bigfoot be able to do that? But just like they always say, the more you learn, the more questions you have.
Well, the fact you just stated about how fast everybody says they are, most trail cameras have over a second delay on the shutter speed.
Yeah.
And if they're that fast, they may hear the relay mechanism go off to activate the camera and just jump and go
Sure.
because they don't know what's going on.
Sure.
That's a
And
simplistic answer. It ain't necessarily the accurate answer, but a possibility.
I think there's an element of noise there too that we can't hear. The reason I say that is because how many times have you seen those deer like in the daytime when those things kick on, like, and they're recording live, they know that kicked on. Many times they look at it, and
Right.
you can have recorders that you can't even hear that, but they can.
Yeah.
So their
And
hearing may be.
they also see the IR light. Some
Yeah.
animals do, it seems. So
Yeah, it does seem like it.
can a Bigfoot see IR light?
Absolutely.
They can see better than Mark Neville.
And I'm blind as a bat.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe that's
worse.
why I ain't seen one.
I'm about ready to step up another power on my readers. I'm
Well,
holding strong at 1.5. I may have to go to 2.0s.
Well, just as Mark said about the audio recorder, I can remember at Titanium Swamp, we set up a trail camera in a funnel area where a ridge came together and the swamp kind of pushed it up, everything up to that area. And we came back a week later and there was leaners pointing toward that trail camera that wasn't there before.
Uh-huh.
So
yeah,
did the limbs just fall out of the tree and lean against the tree trunk pointing toward that camera, or did something mark it?
Right.
I don't know. But it's a weird thing. I mean, if they, and I don't know what they are, I'm not saying what they are, but if they were flesh and blood primate, then it would be easier to me, it seems, to catch them on a trail camera.
Yeah.
Than another unknown hominid, or if you want to go off the rabbit hole, whatever you want to do. But it amazes me how many people still hold on to that belief that they're an unknown primate. And in the end, they may be 100% accurate, but an animal to me is patternable and easy to hunt down, track, whatever you want to say.
Sure.
But I don't know. I know Mark has another opinion. What's your opinion on that, Mark?
Well, I had saw where Tracy Stanley had mentioned in the comments, and it's something that I have thought about a lot over the years, is I just feel like when you enter the woods, that if they're in anywhere in the general vicinity, then they know that you're there and they're probably watching you. So they're, and especially like when we were in the Appalachians, we were primitive camping, and we're probably, it ain't no telling how long it's been since somebody had even walked through that area. And so I feel like that we were being watched, and saw us put out a man-made object. I have thought that a lot, that very well could have been what happened.
Yeah, I agree with that opinion too. I've always felt like whenever you enter their woods that they know you're there and they're watching what you're doing the whole time. It's hard to sneak something past them to get a picture or audio. The thing with audio is it has a bigger range than the trail cameras. So they may not get right up on it. We have heard them get up on it and tap it and everything else, but normally they just stay in the periphery of it and don't get up close like the trail cameras. They don't get up close. But I've always felt like when you're in the woods, they know you're there and they're watching what you're doing.
You can get a whole lot stand a better chance of getting luckier. And I'll take luck any day of the week, because they might be 100 yards away and where they can't sense that there's something there. And they could just be moving through the area and let out a scream or do a knock or some other sign. And we have caught a lot of that over the years.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think oftentimes it's overlooked is smell. I don't see a lot of people trying to mask smell like we do for deer. There's lots of different type of scent blockers. There are some, don't get me wrong, but I just don't hear a lot about anybody putting out game cameras and audio recorders and things like that. And they don't seem to think about so much about smell, how well the smell might be. That might be something that's given away too.
Yeah.
Plays a big factor in avoiding some of these things.
Yeah, that's a good point, because each one of us have our own little oily skin and our own scent. And even the over-the-counter scent blockers and stuff, if you smell them, they have a scent to them.
Yeah.
And it supposedly neutralizes your scent, but it's got its own scent.
Yeah.
So just because you're spraying a scent blocker on there, don't mean you're necessarily killing all the scent. You may just be distributing a different scent there that's not as an alarming to a deer or a hog or something like that. But to a Bigfoot, I would figure most every smell they're not used to puts them on alert, I would think. But
Spencer brings up a good point with his question. He says, if boogers could sense electronic devices, why would they need to mark them? That just makes me go back and think, the more that I learn, the more that I realize that I don't know. And for every question I have that I think that I'm getting close to answering it, that answer turns around into 5 more questions.
Right. And I mean, you just take his question, if boogers could sense electronic devices, why would they need to mark them? Maybe if they can sense electronic devices, maybe not all boogers can sense electronic devices, and they're marking them for the ones that can't.
Or the little ones.
Right. I mean, you can think outside the box and look inside the box, and we don't know. It's a guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, there are, in the Bigfoot community, there are people that are good at tracking. There's people that are good at calling. There's people that are good at, or maybe they think they're good at knowing what glyphs or tree structures mean, whatever. But everybody ain't the same. And a Sasquatch, all of them may have different abilities other than some of the rest. So it's speculation. That's all we can say. It's all speculation till Mark finally captures one with them goats he's herding all day long.
Tied them to the trees out there.
Oh, but I mean, all we're doing is speculating, but we're trying to question why the technology we have today is not yielding more evidence than what it does. All right, so y'all want to talk any more about trail cameras? I know Jamie has a bunch to say about trail cameras.
Not a bunch. When you're ready to move on to something else, talk about drones and stuff.
We ain't even got that far.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about audio recorders because Mark knows about audio recorders.
Yep.
And is any audio ever going to prove the existence of a Sasquatch?
I don't think so. But what I do think, I think it's one of the best tools out there for your researchers, because you can set them out, and you can listen to what goes on in the woods when they are not humans around.
Right.
And Larry, I go back to when me and you did a camp out on the outside of an 18th century cemetery. Now, you can see that video. It was one of our first ones, and we called it Brokeback. And but the thing about it is there had been a tree to fallen, and they had not cut up that tree so that you could drive to the cemetery, and you had to walk in. And we had that recorder running, and it was still running when we went to pick it up a few days later. And you can hear our vehicle coming down the gravel road crunching on the rocks. You can hear it turn in, and you can hear our doors shut. But before we got out of that vehicle, you hear a knock. And you know, it makes me think that there was one right there in that area, and he was letting his buddies know, hey, there's humans and they're here.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious that that's what they did. And I mean, audio captures some of the best evidence out there that proves there's something in the woods at night that's not human. We don't know exactly what it is all the time, but there's something that is making wood knocks, or what we think is a wood knock, vocalizations, even gibberish and everything else, mimicking other animals. So I think that overall, the audio recorder is going to be your number one evidence taker of research, but it's probably going to be last on the list for evidence to prove that Bigfoot is real.
Yeah.
Probably. Because everybody's easily say you faked it, or it ain't what you think it is, or blah, blah. The naysayers outtake anybody of positive comments. I guarantee that.
Yeah.
All right, Mark, through your expertise, how long does a Sasquatch live?
I do know what Bear told us. And
Who?
Bear, and it makes sense that on their farm down in Mississippi, and his grandpa had a cow call, and he would do that for the cows to come in.
Yeah.
And they would hear the boogers mimicking that cow call. And one day, even after his grandpa passed away, they would still hear that cow call. And one day, the cow call just stopped. And so it just kind of, he thought that because of the time, that they probably only lived to be about 40 years old, give or take a few years. And that just kind of made sense to me.
It kind of does, because you look at the pioneers back in the late 1800s, early 1900s that lived off the land and farmed. Their average life expectancy was what, 40s, mid 40s or something?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, kind of makes sense, but there again, we don't know for sure. Mark hadn't talked to him tonight with mental telepathy or anything. CD Squatcher, animals know when earthquakes are coming. My rabbits knew when the hurricane would hit here. Yep, that's for sure. They do have some kind of sense of internal barometric pressure or something.
I remember seeing stories about Indonesian countries when the big tidal waves hit, and they had like elephant rides, and those elephants headed for the hills, and those guys were beating them trying to get them to stop, but they didn't realize till they got up high what was going on. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yep. Yeah, animals know for some reason. Well, the good Lord gave them a sense of survival. Bill Brown asked, could you not adapt a game camera to a platform similar to an aerostat, simply a camera hanging from a balloon? Well, don't y'all talk at once?
I don't see why not.
I think Bill brings up a good point, and I know that it's been tried before. I don't know about a balloon, but I know people have sent them, put them up high, you know. You take some of these pine trees, it's nothing for them to be 50 foot tall, that you could, put one up there. And then, of course, we'll probably talk about drones later on.
Well, we can go ahead and talk about them now. I mean, because a drone's similar to a balloon, except the balloon's quiet. The drone has capability of thermal cameras, night vision, and regular camera. So
I'm surprised we don't get more thermal hits with a drone than they do.
I'm surprised we don't get more thermal hits with a thermal, period.
Yeah.
But yeah, a drone, you can cover more area. You're up out of the zone, supposedly the danger zone for them. And if you've got a team in the woods and the drone's going from an opposite way, I don't know why it wouldn't work, but hopefully on the 168 we'll get to see something.
Yeah.
Because I don't know of anybody else that's actually had a thermal drone that they've used out in the field. Well, besides Expedition Bigfoot and all the money production, but it'd be nicer if it was real researcher. Well, they're real researchers, but they're under a production constraints.
Sure.
They're not out there doing what they would probably do if they were out there by themselves.
Right.
Would you say that, Mark?
I think I would. I think back, there was one time that I was at LBL.
I thought you were going to say at band camp.
What are you laughing at, Jamie? But I remember I saw a government vehicle there, and it was close to the buffalo range. And our area was pretty close that we were going into, and I saw him getting it out and setting it up, and I thought, I'm just going to pull up and just strike up a conversation. And it wasn't like he was sending that drone up to count buffalo, but he was sending it in a pretty remote area of LBL, and that always struck me as being very strange. We have areas there, where they have fields that farmers will plant in, but this, where he was sending that drone at, I mean, it was just a remote, primitive area, and I thought, man, that's pretty strange.
Yeah. Oh. What did I just click off of there? Because it's went down so much. I think it was my Next question, and I just clicked off of it. Did any of y'all read it before I?
No, I just see Christine's, but I think that you would have
Oh,
would
I
have
remember what it was.
I think you would have to you would be susceptible to the elements where, like when I used to skydive, if it was over 12 miles an hour with the wind blowing, they wouldn't let you jump because you wouldn't be able to land safely. And so it would have to be I would think a calm day if you were going to send up a balloon with a thermal hooked
Yeah,
up to the bottom of it.
definitely. The other one I had up was I can't remember who asked it. They said, oh, it was White Boy. Said Bigfoot must be sensitive to everything. I don't know if that was a question or a statement, but it works both ways. And they could be sensitive to everything or just very lucky. Or they jump in that portal and just avoid all of it. I don't know. Mark, did the cows know the difference between his grandpa's voice and the booger's voice?
I'd never heard bears say anything about
Just say
cow
no.
the cows turning around and going towards the wood line. When
The
they heard the call, they knew to head back to the house.
because
I can
it's time
remember.
to eat.
I can remember whenever we'd call the cows come to the barn. I'd listen to my dad do it, and then I started doing it. And they wouldn't come if I did it when I first started doing it. So I deepened my voice to sound closer to him,
Yeah.
and that worked. They actually came. So they pay attention.
Yeah.
I like looking down on him too, Spencer.
Thanks, Spencer.
No, all the cattle farmers had calls to call the cattle in to feed them and check them and all that. And I've heard of the Bigfoot mimicking people calling their dogs and the dogs going out in the woods toward them.
Yeah, we have heard
So,
those stories.
so their mimics are usually pretty accurate. But when you got an animal that's hungry, all you got to do is get the tone right, the cadence right, and they're coming.
Yeah.
It don't matter if it's a 2-year-old doing it or a 50-year-old or whatever. Bama Murdoch, what about the boogers the government has? How long do they live? You can't take him nowhere. I thought that was a serious question there for a second. And if it is, it's still 42, right, Mark?
Yeah.
Military has the FLIR technology. Aircraft with it may and should be able to catch their image. No researcher can afford that, so we're stuck with the technology our budgets can't afford. That's true. I had that written down in my notes that our technology ain't necessarily the best technology out there.
No.
The military may be monitoring these things and know what they do on a daily basis and where they hide and everything else. Well, me and Mark are sitting there with a $600 FLIR that can't pick up a rabbit at 50 yards.
Yeah, that's like, I remember Zasky talking about he was filming, and when they were filming, they were seeing the red light, like different devices flying around, but you couldn't hear them. They didn't make any noise. It makes you wonder if that wasn't this technology they may have them now where they're so quiet you can't even hear them.
Yeah, well, he said they could only see those things with night vision too.
Right.
They couldn't see them with thermal or a regular camera.
Yep.
You know, you think about the technology, really all the technology that we have and that we use is what's been trickled down from the military.
Right.
And you can call it dumbed down for our use. But not because we're dumb. It's just that they don't let out as good a technology to the public as what they use in the military.
Right.
Yeah.
The FLIR technology that they use is so much better than even what you've seen on Finding Bigfoot or Expedition Bigfoot or any of those shows. I guarantee it. They probably got a lot more range and a lot better detail and everything else.
Mm-hmm. I can remember I was telling Larry in a conversation one time, whenever kind of into technology and the jobs we have a little bit, and the old DSL, digital subscriber line, we started getting into those and installing those about 2002. And one of the guys I worked with had been in the military, and he told me that they used DSL and microwave in conjunction whenever he was in the military, which would have put him there about 94, 95, 96, right in that area. And we didn't have DSL then. It didn't really take hold till 02. So that just goes to show you. And he was like, they had already figured out how to use like a physical connection, like a digital subscriber line, or like we might know, like an old landline, running high-speed internet over it and converting to microwave and transmitting, and then they could transmit back to physical connections. And they were already messing with that stuff in the middle 90s. So it wasn't really that new to him, but he didn't realize what they were going to do with it. So he didn't realize that we were going to be installing that after he got out of the military. So
Right. All right, Big John, thank you, sir, for the $10. Mark will use that in his stake fund, I'm sure. Let's talk a little bit about cameras before we keep on with the questions, because we haven't talked about cameras. But one of the big things you hear from the skeptics now is everybody has a camera in their pocket. Why don't we have more pictures? Since people are seeing these creatures and everybody has a camera on them all the time.
I guarantee you I'd be on that list, because when I get to see one, or if I ever do get to see one, I'm not going to want to take my eyes off of it. I'm going to be in awe, number one, and then I'm not going to take my eyes on it. I don't know if my mind will recognize it quick enough, the fact that as soon as I take my eyes off of it, grab that phone and look up, and it's gone, because I keep hearing that story over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that'll be a 50-50 shot there if I ever see one, or if you even think about it. I mean, a lot of people say, I just didn't think about it. I was just in such awe. So I think that's perfectly normal myself. That's a normal reaction.
I agree. I mean, if one walked out, if I was hiking down a hiking trail and one walked out 50 yards from me across the trail and went down into a ravine, I would be looking at the thing, trying to figure out what it was, if it was real or somebody was in a suit, what was going on, before I ever thought about pulling the phone out and videoing or taking a picture. And some people, after they do have this encounter, they do take out the phone and they catch it as it's walking 100 yards off through the woods, and they take a picture, and all you see is a shadowy figure. Right. Because unfortunately, the digital cameras, after a certain amount of feet and a certain zoom, they get pixelated where you can't see detail.
Yeah.
So even though these people said they saw one cross, they took a picture of it, they put that up on Facebook or YouTube, whatever, they get chastised for a blob squatch or a shadow.
All the critical thinkers.
Yeah, the critical thinkers.
Well,
But it validates their story, but it's not really proof to anybody other than validating their story, that they saw something and that was a picture of what they saw. But unfortunately, with digital technology, you can't zoom in because of the pixelation.
Right. I watched a video too. The guy had taken a picture of a print. It's been a few years back, and he didn't like the effect that the picture gave from the newer stuff. So he went and got an older camera and took a picture of it. And he put them side by side and said, the new stuff, that doesn't give you any depth. It flattens everything out. and that definitely doesn't help you any. And you can see it in pictures. Uh, you look at prints and stuff, people taking pictures, they just look weird sometimes. It's like you
Right.
have trouble, your perception of it. Is it print raising up or is it going down? Have you ever noticed that in some pictures? Not all pictures, but I think maybe that has actually gotten a little better. But
Well, I know we had Matt Larson on Mark's show on
Mhm.
Thursday,
Yep.
and he talked about how much better the old film cameras were, taking pictures that you could actually zoom in on and see detail and this and that compared to the digital cameras today. Even though the initial picture is clear and vivid,
Mm-hmm.
once you go past that initial picture and look into the depths of it, you can't. And
Right.
on a film picture, you can go into detail in little sections and this and that.
And the amount of film you would have to use every time you turn around, you'd have to be reload your camera.
Yeah.
But Larry talking about one passing in front of him, and before he would even think to pull out his camera to take a picture, it's off in the ravine.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you the amount of times that something has happened and we don't think about filming it. And one thing that comes to my mind is years ago, I had a man take me under his wings. And if you knew this man, you would know there's not a dishonest bone in his body. He was very soft spoken, but he was very intelligent. He was a chiropractor and he had a very good thermal. And him and another guy went to do a little night hike down a trail. And they were walking, they thought they saw something move. And of course, it's nighttime, they've got flashlights. But of course, what could have it had been? And so they're just walking. And then all of a sudden, one of the guys turned in a different direction. And the light shined on a juvenile booger, a youngster that was squatted down up against a tree. And you can imagine a bright light being shined in your eyes. And they sat there and they looked at it. And after about a minute of just looking at it, being face to face with this creature, one of the guys said, "We're stressing him out. Let's just back away and give him a way out." And he said that he was halfway back to camp when he realized he was holding a thermal in his hand. And it didn't even dawn on him that he had a thermal and he was within 3 feet of a little one.
Yeah. It's crazy. But that's how your mind is. You're taking in what you're looking at, thinking about what to do, and your safety. A camera's not really on your mind, even though you're there for that purpose.
Also, your brain can't process it. And it's really strange. You know, you were with Shelley when she had her sighting, and the doubt that was going through her mind, you know, and you could actually see someone that their brain is trying to process it, and you're really trying to talk yourself out of what you're seeing.
Yep. Trying to justify it by what you know.
Yeah.
All right. Can Squatch military has the FLIR technology aircraft with it may or should. I think I read that. Never mind. Never mind.
You can read?
I can read. Just can't remember. Night Wolf's Bigfoot knows where field cams are. If you say so. I don't know. They seem to, but who knows? They may miss one occasionally.
You know, we have seen pictures privately that of Sasquatch, and you look at them and you go, man, this is not CGI. This is not a hoax, you know. But there's a lot of stuff that's out there that people just don't want to put for the public to view it. And it's kind of a shame, but I absolutely understand it, because you've got a group out there that's all they want to do is cut them down at the knees.
Mm-hmm.
It's because that's all they can do.
Yeah.
They're too fat to do anything else. All right, Ray Doll. Does anyone suspect they can throw their voice to make it seemingly come from another direction? I've heard many times people say this is a fact. So, unlike other people that thinks everybody's lying, I try to accept people's truth as truth until they are proven otherwise. So, I've heard many people's accounts say that they would throw their voice if they knew something was in a direction. They would get a voice from the other side, and sometimes it's just misdirection from another one, but I have heard them throwing their voice and mimicking. So, all right, why do we not get more hits on thermal cameras? You know, whenever I got my little TK Scout, 4 years ago, I thought this is the key component to seeing a Sasquatch. And you know how many hits I've had on that thermal camera? 2, and they were at the same time, and they were so far away, I don't know for sure what they were. Come on in. We'll let Jamie address his. Jamie, you good, or you need to answer the door?
I had no one bring me a pair of socks because my feet are cold.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, what a wussy!
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, that's right.
I
got Yankee. Hey, tell Spencer I got Yankee feet.
Yeah, he heard you. He said, "Yeah, you're right." All right, Mark. So you've got a better thermal than me. Why do we not get more thermal hits than we do?
There are so many factors in that equation, because you think, what if it's spring to fall when there's foliage out? That's more stuff to hide behind. Mm-hmm. How many reports have we heard about, in which I have observed on 2 different occasions, of tree peekers where they're hiding behind a tree and they're just sticking out far enough to get an eyeball out there to look. And if you're just sitting there and if you're just scanning a wood line, then you may not catch that much of a booger sticking his head out from around a tree. So there's a lot of factors involved in why we don't. And then it's what you said about the TK Scouts. They are good for close up, but you get beyond 50 yards and it's just not going to pick up. It's not going to go from here to infinity.
Yeah, that's for sure. And that brings us to the next subject, the night vision. I think there's been more seen with night vision than there has anything. Just off the cuff, thinking about the different people I know that have seen them, usually they were picked up in night vision. They saw the eye shine and then locked in on them and could see more detail. The trouble is, up to the last few years with night vision, you weren't able to record. So these were just sightings and the people seeing them through the night vision scope or whatever. Now we have the capability of recording through the night vision, which is good. But I've got night vision and I've got thermal, and I tend to pick up the thermal because it's like the remedial class for reading. It's just easier. You don't have to sit there and focus the whole time you're looking for heat and know if something's there or not. It's just a quick hit on it. But if you took the time to utilize the night vision, we may get more visuals on them than what we do. I don't know. But the recording device on the new night vision, they're pretty heavy. After a while, you get wore out sitting there holding them things up, looking through them. Now that brings us back to the military grade night vision. Their range is a whole lot more than what ours is. So our troops, they put those goggles down and they're walking around just like it's daylight outside. They can see, I don't know how far they go. Somebody in the chat may be in the military and know what the range on them are. I don't know, but they're better than most anything we can buy over the counter here in the United States anyway. You may be able to go to a black market and buy something from Russia or China or something. I don't know. But it seems to me second to the audio recorders and technology gathering evidence that the night vision has had more sightings than most anything. So get you some night vision. And, you know, that brings me to another point. Night vision generally works with an hour light, but people see them with night vision. But people will say they avoid the game cameras because of the IR light.
Yeah.
So what's the truth there?
That's a good point. Good point.
Could it be because of distance?
It could be. They could feel more comfortable with a tree peeking behind a tree or whatever and be 50 or 60 yards out, where I guess to set off a trail camera, you're generally 30 yards is pretty much the trigger distance on most of them. I know some have a little more, some have a little less, but
I think there's something to be said too about at night with it being dark. I mean, they probably feel a little bit more comfortable thinking that they can't be seen as well. So you have a little bit better luck for them being in closer.
Right. Oh no. It just skipped way down again. This chat either don't move or it goes all the way 45,000 below.
You lost all the questions.
So if I missed any of your questions, I'll just go ahead and say my bad, and you can put it in the comments how I avoid your question or whatever, but I'm not avoiding any question unless it's Bama saying something about whatever he said earlier about captivity, how long they live.
Now, BF Bud has a good statement, and I know the Starlight night visions, I believe they came out during the Vietnam era, and you go back and you look at some of that footage of like the helicopter pilots, you know, that was pretty awesome night vision that those guys had back in the late 60s and early 70s.
Yeah. You can keep talking.
I've never seen any of that kind of stuff at like some of the Army, Navy surplus, military type stores and stuff like that. I don't ever see a whole lot of that kind of stuff.
No, and a lot of the Army surplus stores have just disappeared over the
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. I
It's
think
mainly,
online's killed a lot of that, but
well, that and everybody wanting to think you're a psycho if you're buying up Army surplus stuff.
yeah.
Bill Brown, why not share the photos in a non-attribution manner?
Bill Brown's way smarter than us.
Yeah, well, it's because there is not a non. Can you say that word again?
Attribution.
No.
There is not a non-attribution manner. Whoever puts it up is going to get crucified. It's just the law of the land.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
If you post anything, you're going to get 90% negative and about 10% that says, ooh, ooh, ooh.
Yeah. And I think that's why the government don't even have to say anything about any evidence, because we're our own worst enemy because of the jealousy and envy that's out there in the community.
Yeah.
All they got
You
to
know,
do is have their intelligence computer guy share their post on one of them dumb sites that just pick stuff apart and then sit back and laugh. Say, hey, Bill, let's order a pizza and watch this.
I mean, even whenever you watch some YouTube videos and some of the things that people post, you clearly can't tell what anything is. I mean, you can't make nothing out of this sometimes. I don't go on their site and say, that's horrible. What's that supposed to be? Say things like that, or was you drinking, or stuff
Yeah.
like that. I don't go on there and say stuff like that because you never know, that person might get a good picture, and then what are you going to do?
Punt. Then you punt. If y'all see a question I missed, go ahead and read it. I don't care. We can move on to some other subjects. We all know the military has amazing satellite imagery that they can see the hairs on your top of your head and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We have LiDAR that
Yeah.
indicates things that we don't normally see. So that is not really, LiDAR is used by some civilian aspects, but the other satellite stuff is pretty much off limits because they don't
Right.
want you to know what they know. But
Well, look at your Google Maps.
yeah,
I mean, just think about, you zoom in with Google Maps, it's only so good.
right.
And I mean, we've seen videos before where they give examples of some of the military grade stuff. They can read a newspaper from a satellite.
Yeah.
They can read the headlines, or you're not going to do that on Google Map or Google Earth. I mean, I understand there's probably a little bit better grades of it if you pay for it, but still, then you're not going to read a newspaper.
There probably ain't better grades for us.
May not be. I don't know. I'm too tight to pay for it, so I wouldn't know if there is a better grade. I just get what's free.
But just thinking about the satellite, the only thing that would keep them from totally viewing what a Bigfoot does during the day in the woods, if it were just unknown primate or red hominid, either one, the only thing saving them from them satellites is the foliage on the trees.
Right.
Now, we do know they have thermal satellites that can see.
Yeah.
They got satellites that can see down below the ground to see things.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if anybody knows what these things are and what they do during the day and everything else, it would have to be the military. But why won't they tell you about them, Jamie?
I don't know. Why don't you call them and ask them?
Well, it's probably because they're trying to figure out how to put an AR in their hand and a helmet on their head and send them into a war or something.
You could write a letter to Biden and see if he can come up with some good flares and stuff for us. See if he'll send them our way.
Let's not even go political.
Talking about the LIDAR. Now, that's something that we do have access to. And I would love to see some of these smart people in our community to go into depth and to be able to utilize, this mapping system. And because I think that would help us a lot. I mean, it's there for us, but me and Larry, we do good to put a worm on a hook.
Yeah. BF Bud says they would shout up to 800 yards on the range. I think that's him talking about the night vision, I hope.
Yeah.
Because we
the starlight. Yeah, the starlight.
So that's pretty bad. All right. Anything else you want to say about LIDAR, Jamie?
No, I don't really know much about LIDAR.
I don't either. It's cool, but I don't know much about it. Well, let's talk about these GPS tags. We got GPS now where we can track things. And we know the NAWAC stuck a tracking device to something that they tracked for 3 or 4 months. And then that technology has got better since what they did then. They've just not been able to stick a chip to nothing since then, because I think they've tried to replicate what they did, but just haven't had any luck. But to me, that is going to be one way we isolate the travel routes of a Bigfoot, the daily activities of one, where they hang out, all that. If we can ever figure out how to consistently get a GPS tracker stuck to one, that they don't pull it off.
Right. Shoot them with it.
Huh?
Shoot them with it like they do a dart.
Well, if you can do that, why not just tranquilize them?
Yeah, right. Or hope you don't piss him off.
Easy, Jamie. This is a kid show.
Yeah.
Mark, you ain't got nothing to say about the GPS?
Well, I just think the NAWAC is what a great group they are, and the way that they work together. And now those are some critical thinkers, not some of these other jokers out here that claim to be.
Yeah.
But you go and you look at what they did with that project, and it's just amazing. It opens up doors.
It does, definitely. And they are scientifically minded, and they pull their money together to buy the best stuff they can with what they got. They're not like me and Mark looking for the 5 and dime reject of whatever to buy because we're poor. But Mark, can Hologram send you his Bigfoot picture?
Well, I wouldn't be able to do nothing with it. I don't have the software to be able to. Now, maybe someone like Matt Larson from Central Florida Bigfoot might be able to do some stuff with it.
Well, there's only so much you can do with a picture. Mainly is just look at it and say, yeah, it looks good. Where'd you get it? Squatch talk. Tech will overtake them if they are flesh and blood 100%.
And that's what you said at the beginning.
Yeah. Technology should overtake them if they're flesh and blood 100%. To me, it should have already overtook them with what we got. But I don't know what's going on. I don't understand it. And I don't know if y'all happened to watch Chris's show the other night from where they went over what happened to them in the Green Swamp. But if you watched Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch, any, they had a lot of that stuff happening to them that happened on that show. And it's weird. It ain't just point blank, whatever's happening. I don't know if they're over a military base that's underground or what, but there's some crazy stuff going on.
Yeah.
All right. Now we get to DNA and eDNA, and there may be other types of DNA for all I know. But DNA has been submitted for the last, 20 years? And it always comes back primate or contaminated human or unknown primate, contaminated human, blah, blah, constantly. And they say they have nothing to base what a Bigfoot's DNA is because they don't have any baseline for it. Other than the 400 samples they've already got that read the same every time, and they threw it in the garbage because it didn't read what they wanted it to read.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think somewhere in the government DNA database that they have a baseline of Bigfoot and they continue to overlook these DNA submitted by the public because they don't want to put it out there?
That could be.
Very possible.
Well, that was some great discussion questions there.
Well, I don't know much about DNA. I'll be honest. I've just some of the basic DNA, and then they talk about getting into the nuclear DNA was a word that needs to be taken to find out for sure because it comes up human, and then they're all done with it. But I don't really know that much about it. But as far as them having it, I'd say it's a great possibility. I mean, I wouldn't see why not. We hear an awful lot of stories about military going in the woods and this and that and the other after some stuff happens and all that. It kind of makes you wonder what's going on there. But I mean, I've never witnessed that, but it's not to say it didn't happen.
Well, why not at least put the DNA that's been submitted over the years into a file that says possible unknown?
Yeah,
and
I'm
see
sure
how
there
many
is.
more are matched to that
Yeah,
every time instead of just saying it's contaminated. It's no good.
yeah.
What are you going to say, Mark?
Well, Bama Murdoch has a lot of educational background from that. And, I really like what he taught me about the eDNA, that scientists can actually pull water samples out of, let's say, a creek and be able to tell you what animals live in that area.
Yeah.
And that way you don't have to worry about no human contamination. But who's got
a human drunk out of that crate?
but it would show up as a human.
Right.
But who's got the $20,000 to have that type of testing done?
Right.
Not me.
Not me. And why does it cost that much?
Right.
Because they don't want the general public submitting DNA that they test. Because it don't really cost that much to test that.
No.
They're just trying to keep it away from the people looking for Loch Ness and all that.
I have a buddy that's a detective, and they send stuff off like that, and it doesn't cost nowhere. The price is what we see.
Right.
It's not even close.
Well, look at that. CD Squatcher says they found eDNA of a giant eel in Loch Ness. How about that?
That ain't bad.
Now, there's other technology out there. There's seismic sensors, there's heat sensors, movement sensors. Are any of those useful in the technology to detect a Bigfoot?
Well, I think that's same as the LiDAR. It's not necessarily to be able to say, hey, here's a picture of Bigfoot, but it can help you in your research and your tactics and your strategies of being able to use that type of stuff to if you find common denominators of where Bigfoot travel routes might be or their corridors.
I always wondered if it would be possible. I don't know. We hear so many stories about game cameras getting torn off trees. They come in from behind and tear them off trees, so it's obvious they know, something. They know something about what's coming out the front. And to have something that's set up to look that direction, but be filming behind it through the back side of the camera, like where you could use a little bit narrower tree and the game camera sticks out past it.
Yeah.
Maybe fool something. But I wouldn't know how to begin to design something like that. But
Oh, you can do it.
no, I can't do it.
Jeff Harding says we are assembling DNA samples here in Minnesota and other parts of the U.S. and are partnering with a major university lab to analyze results for LMS2. You know what that is, Jamie. Creating one lab and base for recognition is key.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
sure.
needs to be done. No doubt about it. There needs to be somebody on our side that's wanting to prove this and use the DNA and the samples and the story behind the samples and all that, which that's never going to legitimize the sample, just the story behind the sample. But I don't know. That's a sad thing where the body comes in. You took the DNA from the body.
Yeah.
And nobody can deny that. But nobody wants to do that.
Well, it's like I've asked 100 times in different shows, scenarios, and I put the question out there. What do I do if I find a body or I get a body? What's the first thing I need to do?
Go to the taxidermist. I'm kidding.
That's what Rick Dyer did.
He sure did.
Yeah.
All right, I got one final category, and that is camouflage. We have seen that they are developing invisibility type camouflage and chameleon type camouflage that just blends into the surroundings. Is that going to help us fat boys hide from these things to where we get a good picture, a good video?
I mean, I don't know. It seems like people put them in the ground and they put them in stumps and they put them here and some of them get dug out or they get stuff thrown at them. And it's like, I don't even set them up.
Well, you got to set them up.
I don't even
it's
set
like
them up.
going catfishing and putting chicken liver on your hook. You ain't going to catch no catfish with no chicken liver.
Well, you
But
do
if you
catch
put
catfish
a chicken breast on there.
I done tried that and let it rot in the boat and everything.
You ain't got to let it rot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mark, tell Jamie how fast I caught a catfish on chicken breast last week.
We were catching them left and right.
Yeah, but look what you guys were catching minnows. I want something I can bring home and at least get a sandwich out of it. You could have put those in a sardine can.
Well, I guarantee you we'd have got a better sandwich out of ours than what you got out of yours. At least we had something to eat.
Well, I only caught the one, but it was about 3 pounds, and that was perfect eating size.
Oh, big BF Bud had to say he uses chicken liver and caught a 44-pounder.
Yep. Chicken liver's a good bait. That's pretty much, it's hard to beat. The best thing to ever use that I've ever used, and it, how you have to use it in running water, like a river or stream or something like that, where there's catfish, is a helgramite. Have you ever heard of a helgramite?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we don't want cussing on here.
Well, that's not cussing. That it's like a centipede type thing
I
that
don't know
dwells in the
why you
water.
like cussing on here so much.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Jamie ain't been watching Catfish Day.
I don't watch
No,
Catfish
he
Day.
hadn't.
That's why he don't catch no catfish.
Yeah, it might be. The cicadas what run it up here for us.
All right, stop playing around and catfish, right? But cut shad. Yeah, cut shad
Yeah.
works good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you got time to go get them or pay $60 for them. Who
Yeah.
wants to do that?
75 for 3 dozen.
All right. So through all this discussion, are the Sasquatch geared with their own anti-surveillance equipment? Do they have senses that help them avoid us? Or are they lucky? Or are we stupid?
I'd say
Or
we're
both.
stupid.
I would say they have adapted to their environment,
Sure.
that they are intelligent enough to understand what is man-made and what is natural in the woods.
Yeah. I mean, plastic puts off a smell. The batteries put off a smell.
Yeah.
And their sense of smell, their hearing, their sight has got to be a lot better than ours. Got to
Sure.
be. Do y'all, Boss Man asked, do you think Bigfoot has their own thermal sensing? I think
Maybe.
their eyes are acclimated to the night.
Yeah.
I don't think they see in thermal, but I do think they see like a deer or anything else that runs around at night.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a little bit better than a deer. But as we always say, that's speculation on our point because we don't really know for sure. Mark might. He's the expert. All right. Well, I'm out of topics. Jamie's
quick.
tired and I'm tired. And we've been on here for what? An hour and 18 minutes, and I try not to go over an hour because it gets past my bedtime.
You want me to tell everybody my shad story, Lake Toho?
No.
No. Okay.
Do you think they will ever capture a Bigfoot? Mark, answer it for Johnny.
I'm sure that they have been captured one way or the other, whether if it was back in the day or the military, the government.
Or just a Friday night.
Yeah.
Had too much to drink. Can Squatch, do you think there is paranormal, spiritual side to Sasquatch?
That's something that I'm opened up to, but I'm such a fact-based person that I would have to see the facts on something like that. So if you've got facts, then I'm willing to look at anything. I like what Shane Carpenter said, about mind speak, that he would be a perfect person for it because he would not just say no just because that didn't fall in his box.
I'll just say I think there's something more going on than what we understand.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it.
No.
So I can't say. But there's some crazy stuff going on out there. And it may not even have nothing to do with Bigfoot. It may be something else that's out there and we don't even know it because we're just stumbling through the woods looking for Bigfoot.
I don't even
Maybe.
like. Go. Sorry.
You don't like what?
Well, I was just letting. I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, it's all right. Mark does it all the time.
Does he? No, I was just going to say I don't even. When people ask me anymore what they think, they ask me what I think Bigfoot is. I don't even like to answer it anymore. Because I mean,
Yeah.
it started out.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know.
Yeah,
And
I know.
And I'm not afraid with anything. Well, it's got to do with Bigfoot or any other topic. If I don't know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I may have an opinion.
Right.
I may have thoughts on it.
I don't even like giving my opinion.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. My opinion's changed from the beginning, but my opinion is more confused now than it ever was. So
yeah.
I don't know either.
I mean, first it was primate. I was dead set on, it's just a North American ape, blah, 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 blah. And then I start hearing all this stuff. And then now we're into orbs. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to shut up.
Yeah. I mean, that's all we can do is just keep going and try to figure it out. But as we always say, the more we know, the more confused we are about it. So we just let people go along on our journey to get confused with us.
And drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Whatever that may be. But anyway, Jamie, we appreciate you coming on here tonight and leaving your expertise in technology for us.
Yeah, expertise in technology. Yeah.
And Mark, have a good evening. We'll be back Thursday. And who's our guest, Mark?
Supposed to be Tom Crabtree.
Supposed to be or is?
Well, I haven't gotten anything from him. I've talked to him, but I haven't gotten anything from him.
Well, talking to him's half the battle. Like G.I. Joe. Knowing's half the battle. All right, folks. We'll see y'all Thursday night. It may be me talking to Mark and Mark talking to me, but we're planning on having Tom on. So join us Thursday night at 8 o'clock. Is that the bat time?
Yep.
And it's the same bat channel?
Same bat channel.
All right. I'm going to say, what am I going to say? Night, footers. All right. We're out of here. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And give Jamie a thumbs up and give Mark a thumbs down and give me a... Wait, there ain't no bird on there. Never mind that. All right. Y'all have a good night.